The Anton Spraul here with a Co-Optimus review of Running with... and I'm dead. Okay, I was going to say that I'm here to review Running with... and I'm dead again. Okay, maybe I should pause the game. Now I can tell you that I'm here to review Running with Rifles, a title that is all uppercase, so I suppose it's the world's longest acronym, but who knows what that stands for. Anyway, Armoured is a curious game that's a little hard to describe accurately. From the name and the screenshots and videos, you might think it's some kind of twin-stick shooter, but it's not. It's a top-down military game. Primarily, you could think of it as a 2D game, but you can climb onto building rooftops, and terrain height definitely plays a role. You play as a squad leader. Based on your experience level, you'll have some number of squad mates to control in addition to your own character. For the most part, these guys just follow you around and act on their own. You can give them some rudimentary commands, but it's not like you're playing an RTS. The main thing to understand about this game is that a single bullet can kill you. Soldiers have no hit points per se, and each time a bullet strikes them, they have a chance to die. If your soldier dies, you'll respawn a few seconds later with a loss of experience and resource points. Now, experience points, as previously described, give you more soldiers to control, mainly. Resource points, on the other hand, give you access to better equipment, and large numbers of resource points can be used to radio in support, which could be extra soldiers parachuting in or artillery strikes. The goal of a match is to take over enemy territory, which you do by having more soldiers in an area than the opponent. So on a basic level, the game is about pushing the line of engagement back, but there are other strategies that can be employed. Now, this game can be played solo, entirely against AI bots, co-op against one or more enemy AI armies, or multiplayers with up to 32 players at once on a server. But I'm reviewing this primarily as a co-op game. Now, the first thing I judge any co-op game by is how easy it is to get me and my friends into the same game. So let me tell you, if you're thinking about setting up a co-op game of Armoured, get ready to game like it's 1999, because this setup is old school, baby. First, you need to start a game. With the game started, you activate a server. Take note of the UDP port you select here, you'll need that later. Also note that unless you want random people wandering in, you should not list this as a public server. Now, if you've got a router on your home network, you'll need to go to your browser and open up the control page for your router and forward that UDP port. This is a potential security risk, so make sure you make a note to yourself to disable that port forwarding when you're done playing. If you're not sure what the local IP address is for your computer, just bring up a command window and run ipconfig. You'll see the IP address listed there. Now you need to know your computer's internet IP, which you can find out by typing "what is my IP" in a Google search. Now you need to give that public IP address to your friends in some way, perhaps over your voice comm or using an email or messaging service, so that they can type it into the manual IP connection box inside the game. Well, that does work, but it's a lot more effort than it should be. At its core, this looks like a fairly simple game, but underneath there's a lot of complexity, and tons of different choices to be made from moment to moment. There are lots of different types of weapons, for example. Shotguns for short range, squad guns that have to be set up before they can fire, single-shot sniper rifles, and so on. The type of primary weapon you choose greatly affects the way you approach the game. There are also vehicles you can drive, some that are really just transportation, but also armored vehicles with gun turrets. Should you try to drive around in a powerful tank-like vehicle, or should you and your squad hoof it? When you kill an enemy, his gear lays on the ground. You could pick it up and run it back to one of your supply trucks and sell it for more resource points. But that will take you away from the front for a while. Is that a good idea? So you've got all these possibilities, and at any given moment, while you're pondering these possibilities, you're always just one bullet away from your demise. Actually, I should say that if you are wearing a protective vest, it's possible to go into a downed state, where you sort of crawl around, presumably screaming out in pain, until somebody comes by with a medic kit to put you back on your feet again, or until an enemy soldier puts you out of your misery. But make no mistake, in this game you will die early and often. In that sense, it almost feels like a roguelike game, not because you have to start over, because all that really happens is that you lose the experience and resource points, but there's that same sense of walking a tightrope as far as you can before you fall. When you've stayed alive for a long time in you almost start to think that you've reached some new, higher plane of gaming. But then you are felled, often from an unexpected direction, before you even knew an enemy was nearby or that someone was shooting at you. All in all, this is a good game and an interesting game, one that doesn't play like many others. But on the whole, I guess I find myself admiring the game more than I enjoy playing it. I think the difficulty of setting up a co-op game highlights a lot of what I don't like about this game. The game is complicated, which is fine, but the game hasn't been designed to guide the player through those complications. A lot of the default controls don't make a lot of sense to me. And for instance, although you have a primary and secondary weapon, the only way to check which weapon you're currently using is to examine your tiny little soldier on the screen. And there's an icon with markers at the bottom of the screen to indicate which radio calls you currently have available, but they're just dots. So unless you memorize which dot means what, and I guess you could do that eventually, you have to bring up another screen to make a call to see what calls are actually doable. And there's large aspects of how the game actually works that I would have never understood unless I read through the wiki. Now, I know some gamers would say that's a good thing, that a game is not holding your hand. But to be honest, the older I get, the more I realize there's nothing wrong with making a game easier to play. Not easier to win, mind you, but easier to play. Now, all of this really applies to the game as a whole. The big question for this review is this a good co-op game? And unfortunately, I have to say, this is not a very good co-op game. You know, a good co-op experience takes a game to the next level. It can make a game that's mediocre when played solo into a good game, and it can make a good solo game into a fantastic game. In rural, though, playing with my friends didn't feel much different than playing solo. The maps are so large that you and your friends will often be fighting well apart from each other, which isn't always a bad thing strategically, because friendly fire is definitely on. But even if you are playing with several friends, most of the soldiers on your own army are going to be played by the AI. And sometimes you feel more like you're just along for the ride as opposed to pushing the action. The regular respawning, too, can make this game feel more like a shared activity than a team game. You don't get many of those great moments you get in an RPG or a game like Payday, where you work as a close-knit team and can end up bruised and bloodied, but narrowly victorious. Now, one good thing about co-op in this game is that difficulty is finely adjustable. You know, a big problem in many games is getting that difficulty just right, because, you know, too easy and too hard can both kill the fun in a hurry. But on the whole, I just can't see me and my gaming group playing RRR very often. I feel like the game has a lot more depth than we've yet to fully understand, but the gameplay just isn't enjoyable enough for us to want to keep playing. Now, the good news is that if you're curious, you can download and play a demo of this game on Steam for free. The demo only lets you play quick solo matches, but will expose you to most of the gameplay. And as I've said, if you don't enjoy playing solo, it's not going to get much better with co-op. And if you do decide to pick up the full game, I definitely recommend the campaign instead of the quick matches.
Oh, I'm dead.
It's like 20 bucks over the hill and I died 8 times? That's actually not that bad.
That's completely wrong.